Number of interviews we've done because we have 24 amazing authors in this book, and we are celebrating today because we have done extremely well with it. The title of this book is 1% More: The Hidden Force to Creating Extraordinary Results in Life and Business. And Lynn Carmine is the heart and soul behind the whole inspiration for this project. He has the Extraordinary Being movement, and we are just delighted to participate. So we have with us today Teresa Martell, who is the Holistic Health Alliance, Dr. Karthik, is that how you say your name? Very good. Yep. Okay. And Alexander Richmond. I'm Becky with Spotlight Publishing. I get to have the fun of bringing people's books to the world and really getting them out there to showcase the extraordinary human beings that you are. Thank you. So as we open our conversation, Teresa, the name of your chapter is Multidimensional Reality. What is multidimensional reality, and why did you choose to write on this subject for this book?
Well, mainly because we have been going through, spiritually, we've been going through a shift, and many people there are people that are going through transitions of this shift, and they need to be able to understand spiritually what's happening to them. And so basically, when I started understanding about the different parallels and the different dimensions and things like that, just from my own work. Now, this could be, like I said in the writing, that other people could explain this differently, and it would still all come out to be the same thing. But when I look at it as with the third dimension is basically humanity. And but at the same time, as of kind of like 2012, that shift of everything coming from a masculine world into a feminine world, people started thinking differently, and people started understanding themselves, and spiritually, their energy centers and their chakras and their world started to change, and they couldn't understand what was going on with them. So it was just kind of like a simple way of being able to explain what we're going through at this time, and that we're all multidimensional because we are learning to live in a higher frequency, which we're going from that third dimension of the fear-based world into the fourth dimension of being able to become the observer, and then the fifth dimension of being more collective conscious, or more kind of more aware, basically. So, so that we are spiritual beings living a human experience, and that there's more to us than just living in our own fears or in the world spheres. And so so that's why I decided to write that. I have so many different things in my head, and that was the one that came up for this story.
I think a lot of us have a lot of variety that we could go with,
Yeah.
but
And basically, when I talk about multidimensional, we're all living it.
true. And
We're
you see
living
that.
in those three different uh, parts of us, which is that fear-based world, and we live that every single day. So when you become more of that fourth dimension, and you're be able to observe yourself, okay, and your surroundings, then you get to understand that, oh, I'm dealing with this fear right now. How can I move out of this? What emotions am I working through? And then when it comes to the fifth dimension, that comes into that spiritual aspect of Christ consciousness, or whatever your belief system would be, to bring you out of that fear.
So would you say that since COVID has happened, there's been a real change in the way we as humanity kind of live our lives, and the awareness, because I've seen such changes in individuals.
Yes, so have I. I'm actually a hypnotherapist, and I have I've been so busy. I don't know what to. I don't. I've been training people to become hypnotists, hoping that they can take the lighter work, so I can take on this more difficult work. Because people are awakening to aspects of themselves that they don't even know what's happening. They think they're having psychotic breaks. They think that they're that that you know uh, they don't know how to fit into the world anymore. But at the same time, some of my clients that I've had for years, I've also witnessed that they are now coming out of that fear-based world, and they are now accepting themselves in the now moments, so that way they can see themselves, and they're raising into another level of their own self, let's just say, to where they're living, they're experiencing, they're saying, oh my God, Terry, everything that you used to talk about, now I'm getting, you know that type of thing.
That's
So I was a little
fascinating.
ahead of myself back then.
Well, and it's taken those that pioneer their way through
Yes.
those things to help be ready for the changes that are happening
Yeah,
today in our
and there's
world.
so many more changes yet to come,
Yes.
and more. Otherwise, I would call them more awakenings to come.
Hmm. Well, and I think that there's just vast changes if you watch just with the way this book has been able to come together, and the human beings that have stepped up and said, yes, I want to participate. Each one of us have beautiful stories to tell, but it's different than it used to be years ago. Maybe we didn't have the resources and tools to share it,
Right.
nor the vastness of being able to really connect with each other from many different locations, and without even leaving our homes.
Yeah.
So pretty
Yeah.
amazing.
I was really grateful that Len asked me to do that, because I am I'm like almost 30 years into this work, and it's at a point where I want to be able to write those things that I know that I talk about all the time. And so it was I told him, I said, I got another story here.
It's a good way to get your feet wet in the writing business and becoming an
That
author.
is true. There is a time to retire, but not to retire.
Right. Thank you. For Alexander, your chapter is called The Seed of Greatness. What is the seed of greatness, and why did you choose to participate in this um, amazing book?
Well, first of all, I would like to acknowledge Len because extraordinary human being, and it's also, you know, who he really is. And
Yes.
when I met him first, and we had conversation, and and I didn't, I didn't think of much further when he later on came back because we only had once a conversation before, which was extraordinary. And then there was a while nothing, and then he approached me and asked me about to participate and write a chapter in the book. So, and I was thinking about, how do I participate? What can I contribute? Because for me, it's all life is a journey for all of us. And when I say all of us, we actually there's oneness. Except, often we put something out, we're looking at it in a way as if there was separation, and goes somewhat into what Teresa just mentioned. We have different points of view, we have different levels in the journey, and there are events which actually let us even reevaluate and look at it from a total new light. So, but when we talk about, like, we're all striving to get, at least for me, it was like that. I hope for everyone else too. Every day I wake up, I want to wake up and be different, better than I was the day before.
Yeah.
So, and that's kind of like how I see life, learning something new, being of contribution,
Mhm.
if I bring an example in my early life, when I was an athlete, it was more there was a level of where the ego was speaking in the background. It was more the, just all about me, almost like narcissistic, thoughts in a way. It was all about me. And then something shifted, something happened. There was an event which totally changed my life. So, and I don't want to take it out too far. So, what happened is I could have written about so many different things, but the core I was thinking of, what is the seed in, for us to succeed? And there's many different definitions what success looks like. For me, success is an achievement in one way, but most and for all, it is an internal fulfillment. It is something like where I know I have been a contribution, if that makes sense. So that's for me. And of course, each and every one might have a different version of that, as we have different points of views. So, but when I looked at it, wherever I succeeded, I was an Olympian, even though I got my butt kicked there, to be honest. But I was a participant. That was something for me. Later on, just because I couldn't make it in one sport, I went to another sport, which takes again, it took me about 12 years to become a world champion. So, and then I found some emptiness within. But no matter what, I looked at it, wherever you achieve something, where's that coming from? And I came up with it's basically unconditional love. And that's kind of like it takes me, in the beginning of anything, you have to have, first of all, a language, right? And that's the divine for me. That's I see as the divine, because even if you see something, because the vision is the second, you have to see something. And then in order to bring what you see and manifest, it has to be communicated back and forth. And that's internally, it's externally. And so, and all I'm saying is when you have that love, that internal love, which is unconditional, later on, as human being, like you said, we're all spiritual being. Teresa said it so well, having a human experience. The human experience, we had been over many generations, so conditioned that we really forget where we actually come from and get confused in our purpose and the meaning of our being here. So, in the unconditional love, for that, I didn't make my coaches wrong when they yelled at me. All the challenges which came in, including the pain, the suffering at times, you don't make it wrong, you make it through. From all that, when you have that passion, there's passion and comes grit and all that, comes later. So, and I want to point out just really, when we go out there for everyone, my message is to look for what we really have a love for, which we don't make wrong in any form or way. We don't have any expectations, just the love of doing. It was not, I want to become a world champion and Olympian in wrestling. Actually, I wanted to have the gold medal, yet I didn't get it. It didn't matter. It didn't matter. The journey was what really mattered. And I have seen it over and over and over again. And that was it. And thanks again, Len, for letting me participate.
That's truly awesome because, life is such a journey, and each day it's what we do with it and the choices that we make, and the choice to grow and to constantly learn, because I think our world has changed remarkably since, we had one of the authors in the book is in his late 80s. And I think about the change he's seen in our world. I'm in my 60s, Lynn's what, you're probably in your 30s still?
40. I'm in my 40s.
But, think of the changes that Tom has seen over the years and how vastly our world has changed to today. And look what he's doing in the world today. He is an amazing human being, but it's the willingness to change with the times and to choose what you're going to do and how you're going to serve in this world. That's beautiful. Dr. K, let's hear from you. Your chapter is Stop Chasing Joy. I love this one. Begin living in wonder. Where does that come from?
It really comes from my own journey, which I kind of highlighted in a way that hopefully the reader can go along for that and see the parallels in their own life. I think it's it was one of those things for me where growing up in a family where immigrant family, my parents left their parents, their brothers and sisters, their friends, their careers, everything in India to come here to go back to graduate school in their 30s with little me to give me a better opportunity to succeed. And I think even as a little kid, I took that on as important. Grades are always important. And at some point, because of how our society just operates, when you have a little bit of a spark of being a high achiever, it's very easy to get down on yourself for not hitting unrealistic goals and things like that. But the one tool that I had to compensate not feeling good enough was to work harder, which only makes the problem worse over time. And so I just found myself in this really interesting situation. Funny enough, Teresa, you mentioned 2012. It was at that time, right? We were going through the shift, and I was going through a shift as well. And at that time, I'm standing at the window of my studio apartment. I worked in downtown Manhattan for a prominent investment bank at the time. Had my own studio apartment on the 30th floor. I had this incredible view of the New Jersey horizon, the sunsets. Like I literally felt I was on top of the world. It was such an incredible view. And I had paid off my parents' credit card debt, my student loans. I'd given more to charity than I ever thought I could in my late 20s. And I had everything that society says you're supposed to have to be happy. And yet I hated the man in the mirror. And it was because there was not a sense of who am I? There wasn't a sense of what is my purpose. And no matter how much I achieved, it didn't fill the void inside. And so at that point, when hitting rock bottom, that's when I was introduced to a new way of eating, and in the process lost 100 pounds, found inspiration in other people getting inspired in me, right? And hey, Karthik, what did you do? And I would just give them some recipes and things like that. But in the process, I realized, okay, you know what? I want to do this for my career. So I left, went to naturopathic medical school in Arizona, and I knew nobody there. And I had a chance at that point to say, okay, everything that I thought I was, I can start fresh here, right? Everything that I thought I was, what if I could create a vision of the person that I want to be and live into that vision? And in doing so, I discovered this journey of emotional health and how can I bring this to other people? And so these days, what I love doing is, in addition to helping companies become emotionally healthy companies, I help high achieving individuals stop chasing joy and begin living in wonder. Because when I went through that process of discovering who I could be, it gave purpose, meaning in my life, and it allowed me to become the person that I needed to be to attract the soulmate that I had been craving all of those years. And when you really get to that place where you're constantly striving to grow, you're not taking the past as a blueprint for who you're going to be in the future. You create a vision of the person that you're striving to be and get incrementally better at it, like 1% every time. Then before long, you have an opportunity to really transform not only your own life, but the lives of those around you, because so many people are surrounded by past protectors and not growth seekers. And only 1 out of 20 of us really is a growth seeker in this world. And so we end up attracting each other. There's 20 growth seekers or more that have contributed to this book. And so that was my excitement to it, toward the book specifically, was that, writing books is definitely going to be a thing in my future. But the idea of being able to contribute to something where somebody can pick up this book and not just learn from what I am sharing, but to learn from Teresa, to learn from Alex, to learn from everybody else's journey and wisdom. It's those different ideas is what's going to allow any one of us to figure out what is being a growth seeker look in my world, right? And so when they can take that mentality and bring that to the people in their lives, that's how we create change. And I'm super excited to be able to contribute.
That's beautiful. So, Lynn, on the four pillars that you mentioned, you
Mhm.
weave all of this in so beautifully throughout the book. The could you repeat the four pillars that are in the book? Because I think that I don't
Sure.
want to mess it up. It's not right here for me. So,
No,
um,
no, that's fine. But yeah, the four pillars I base the book on is awareness, growth, action, and impact. And we need to have self-awareness, awareness of ourselves, awareness of the world around us. And once we do that, then we can move to start growing, start learning more, start figuring out what resources that we need to uncover those blind spots, to build a better foundation for ourselves, how to live differently. And then you take action, putting together systems, strategies, building better habits. And through those three pillars, you have what's called impact. What impact are you making for yourself and the world around you? Because everything that we do, every little thing that we do is affecting someone in some way. It may not be directly, but indirectly, we are affecting other people's lives, you know, in one way or another. So you have to realize the impact that you're making, either with a good choice or a bad choice. It's just not affecting you or the person that you might have in front of you, but it's affecting a lot of other people that you're unaware of around you. So making your choices is very important. Having these four pillars is a great way to give you the personal foundation for success. And I weaved all the authors based upon their stories into those four pillars to give different perspectives on how you can go about achieving achieving each pillar, and you finding your own way, your own path with their guidance to assist you.
that couldn't be said any better. And what I'm seeing and observing through all the interviews we've done today, and these three remarkable human beings on this interview, is we're all saying the exact same thing in a different way, and yet what a difference that makes. And I think of that Dr. David Hawkins and his um, scale of vibrational frequencies, and how when you get rid of the shame, the guilt, and the fear, then the vibrational flow happens as you step into acceptance and love and all these other beautiful qualities, and it vibrates out to the world. It's got that ripple effect that's taking place, and what I find remarkable is that's what we're saying. We're talking about
Yeah.
as we raise our own and take care and make the choices to live in a way that's going to impact others in a positive way, then it has its ripple effect on the earth, on our world, and human beings. And Terry, as you mentioned, you know, our world is changing and it's changing quickly, and we're going into different dimensional frequencies. And yes, it makes adjustments, and some of us don't understand what exactly is happening. And that's why all of our work is so very important, is to get these messages out. And Lynn, you've done a remarkable job of doing this. So Terry, you don't mind I call you Terry, because in the book
Oh
it was
no, that's
Terry
yeah,
and Teresa.
absolutely. Please do.
In your work, what would you say to somebody that's come to you with kind of, I need some answers. I'm struggling here. I'm just not making it in this world. How would you guide them to look at life in a different way and to overcome what they're working on, what they're
Well, the first thing
confronting?
I would do is stay in their world right there. Like right where they're at. And usually, what I start with is the emotions. Finding out what they're fearing. So I kind of like go through multiple emotions. Sometimes I will do some like an emotional work where I'll have them repeat a phrase, like I now release from every cell of my body, type thing. And then I will have them that I'll say something like just say guilt, for instance. Okay. And then I'll tell them the very first thing that comes up that pops up in your mind, um, you know, let me know what that is. And then what I do is I take it to a physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual aspect. And so what I'll do is they're actually emotionally bringing up that thought process in their image, and I'll tell them to blow that out to the universe and allow their benevolent beings to transform that energy into a positive energy, maybe the opposite of what guilt is, like love, forgiveness, compassion, that type of thing. And then they send it back to their heart and allow that, also fragmentations of that, to go to the people, places, and things that created that. So that's kind of like how I start things, is by working through those emotions. And then we go through that. It's because really it's is the emotions, the fears that people come to you for, that have to be addressed. Otherwise they're still going to be fighting that same battle. I can't be talking about other dimensions when I first meet them, until they're ready to reach that level of growth,
Right.
because you can't even understand that spiritual awakening. So their first step is to come to somebody outside the box, because a lot of people have already tried other avenues and it didn't work. But then, when they hear there's a local hypnotist in town, then they come to that, but they don't really realize what I'm all about until they start to feel better.
Right.
So sometimes I just address the simple things first, and then go into
Beautiful.
a higher level of getting them to understand themselves at a physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual. And I'm all about balance, finding that balance.
That's beautiful. And I'm reading the comments. They're talking about what a great teacher you are. There's some really nice comments in here. All about you. And so for Alexander, where does your work, and how do you work with individuals in business today?
Well, I work with people who get stuck. So that's in business. It's also in their personal lives. I don't separate so much, even though for a while I was stressing the point that I was a business coach, but even a business is all about the people. You can't have a business without the people. And often that's, just neglected. It's seen in, we come up with performance, different methods, and implementing certain methodology where it is really important. And, Terry, I'm totally in line with you. It's all about energy. We're a spiritual being. We have to remember that.
Mm-hmm.
And if somebody gets stuck, first of all, there's nothing ever wrong with it. It's, they're always in the right place where they're supposed to be.
It's about growth.
You
Yeah.
have to believe that. You have to believe that.
Mm-hmm.
So that's number one. Number two is really exploring, where is that emotion coming from? Where have I seen that before? Because there is a wound which hadn't been healed in a way, and it has to be processed. And I'll give you an example about myself just recently. Even though I'm a coach, I get my own coaching because it's so important. We have our blind spots we don't see,
Right.
So for me, it's very important to have coaches around me. And I don't have just one, because there's, it's good to switch it up, not always go to the same, to have actually a variety of approaches offered to you, in a way. There's different viewpoints. And so I was in a communication course, and in a communication course, how to communicate better, there was an exercise. I was asked, for example, to think about of something where I had the listening off, and it kind of came back over and over again throughout my life, and so I don't know if I made it clear enough. So anyway, so I came out and I was thinking about what kind of listening could it have been, what always comes back. And then I thought of my father, and he passed just recently too. And I don't want to make him wrong. He had his pain and whatever, but at a time, like when we were young, I grew up in East Germany under communism. Lots of stress came along with it. My father's separation from his family and so on, just as a little background. But he was an angry person, so to speak. He had lots of frustrations, unprocessed energy. But he was an engineer, actually. He wanted to always give us something so we would have an easier life. but in the process, we didn't like it as children because we were called idiots. We couldn't do it. That came over and over again. And I'm like, this is kind of stuck with me in a way. But my listening and the way it was explained to us in the exercise, if I give you the instructions, I have to look it up exactly the way it was given, is what was my true listening, not to the words. What is my internal listening? What do I listen to myself?
Mm-hmm.
And there it was something I thought which actually empowered me for so long, is that I had to prove it to others that I'm capable, because my listening was the world can't be trusted, and I don't have any, I have to prove it to people. I'm not capable. I'm not competent. So here I am. I never asked anyone for help. That's one thing, because it always had to come from me. I had to come and show people that I could do it. So, and it shows even in the sports and whatever I have been doing. So, and it just recently, I'm over 60 years old now, and I looked at it. I'm like, I never experienced teamwork, even though I created teams and business successfully. I know what it takes, yet I never implemented what I knew needs to happen. And I tell my, my clients, it's, if you want to go fast, you go alone. But if you want to go far, go with the many. It's an African proverb. And I totally believed in that my whole life. As long as I had known of it, that's what I believed in. Yet somehow in my blind spot, in the back was always running. I would never ask for help. Whenever I had moved many times throughout the world, I had been in so many different countries, and never asked even for help unless I really couldn't do it. So that's how crazy it was. So, and
those patterns we learn from birth, actually, probably before birth. Those are the patterns that they're learned, and until we face them and do something about it, then we're stuck in a repeat, that repeat cycle.
Right, but the important part, the point I wanted to make, we're always in the right spot. It's just looking, finding something, discovering. It's, I can never tell anyone what to do, and I will never attempt. Often all I see is when people, when they get stuck, they are trying to force outcomes, and you can't do that. That's an important lesson. You have to look, are you trying to force an outcome? Is it really something you want? So it's all internally. The answers are all within that individual.
Right.
At any given time. Is it we're just ready for it? Do we have the right energy? And when we are aware of, like, and you mentioned already, it's one of my favorite books, Power versus Force, Dr. David Harkins. It's, it is really great when you look where you're at that moment on that scale, and then what needs to get done. I mean, that's a great self-help, just even looking what needs to get done. And then, how you find later on, not chasing, but it comes naturally, the joy, the peace, that's what it is.
Beautiful. Thank you for sharing, and thank you for your wisdom for each one of you. And I'm not leaving you out on this, Dr. Karthik. In your work, what do you do in your work today that makes an impact on the world?
Yeah, so coming from my Wall Street background, I know what a stressful environment feels like, work environment. And again, I like Alex's way of putting it. Like, you're not making anyone wrong, right? It's just it is the environment is what it is. And some people seem to thrive in it, and I did my best to put on a mask every day, so to speak. Go in there, do the best I could, but I didn't feel comfortable sharing at all what I was going through, how I was struggling. And so on the outside, looks like smiling, high achieving, doing everything well, but I went home and I was just completely exhausted and started questioning everything. And so these days I really love working with companies to create environments at work that are emotionally healthy. And so that's the work I do with companies. So that's with group workshops, live events, that sort of thing. And then with individuals, either in group coaching environments or one-on-one coaching, it's primarily working on, well, the title of my book, or my chapter rather, Stop Chasing Joy, and Begin Living in Wonder. It's what are the patterns that have been running your life, but what are also the habits that contribute to your emotional health today? So basically what we optimize are a framework, to talk about pillars again, my 5 pillars of emotional health, which are your psychology, so your behaviors, your default thought and belief patterns, where do they come from, history of trauma all goes in there, emotional intelligence. Number 2, your relationships. We've all heard you're the average of the 5 people and ideas that you spend the most time with. So how do you optimize who you spend your time with, but also the romantic relationships in your life? If that is not going smoothly, if the communication is not there, it's going to add stress to every other aspect of your life. So how do you take that to the next level? Number 3, nutrition. 90% of the neurotransmitters that regulate how we think, act, and feel are actually generated not by ourselves, but by bacteria that live in our gut. We've outsourced the production of 30 neurotransmitters to them, and they produce 90 to 95% of those neurotransmitters. So if we don't eat the right foods, if we don't eliminate the processed food that we are so accustomed to conveniently eating, unfortunately, in our society today, it has a drastic impact on our mental and emotional health. So helping my clients and the companies, the people that I work with, learn what that is and how to optimize your gut health so that your emotional health is improved, because it goes both ways. It's a two-way street. Number 4, your sleep, because high-achieving individuals like the first thing to go. Team no sleep. I heard it today. I'll sleep when I'm dead. That day will come sooner, and you don't want that. Sleep is when we regenerate, when we process the day's events. The brain literally detoxifies. We commit things to long-term memory. It is, if you think about it from an evolutionary perspective, if we spend 1/3 of our life sleeping and being susceptible to being attacked, why do we do it? Maybe it's important. Turns out it is. And number 5, body movement, because motion dictates emotion. And it's not just about exercise. It's about how do we create constant low-grade motion, like you find in the blue zones, Dan Buettner's work. The longest-lived populations on Earth are kind of in a state of constant low-grade motion. They're just moving as part of their day-to-day life. And turns out that also has a drastic impact on our emotional health as well. And so I help people get out of their own way in order to implement those habits. And then once we create that great foundation, now all of a sudden, if some of the issues like anxiety and whatnot might disappear, and if not, then we can tailor something medically that will serve those needs. But in my experience so far, dealing with the fundamentals and kind of really just looking at allowing the body to heal itself, going through spiritual healing, all of these things just allow us to be the best version of ourselves, and then we're able to be resilient and handle any of the emotional turmoil that comes our way, because pain in life is going to happen. It's unavoidable, but suffering is optional. So I always say, never let your pain go to waste.
Oh, thank you. This has been truly a beautiful interview, and it's time that we kind of bring it to an end. But for those that are listening or will listen to this video, every chapter in the book that has an author represented will give you a way to contact that individual. If really something they said really resonated with you, reach out to them. The contact information is there. There's a way to connect, because we're all in this world together, and it's up to us to give each other the hand up and the reaching out to really be there, because that's what we're here for, to make a difference and to support each other in that journey. Thank you for each one of you. I love meeting you and just being a part of this beautiful series, and we're very honored to be a part of this. So thank you. And so we'll conclude this interview. We have a couple more later, top of the hour, next couple of hours. So thank you for being here today.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.